Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to today's webinar, Investing in Portugal through Private Equity Funds and How It Works Together with the Golden Visa. Now, we are just waiting for the rest of our participants to join us. They're flooding in. I'm watching the numbers. And we'll just give it a few more seconds while everybody joins us. I should say that we are recording this session and it will be available permanently on the Moving to Portugal website from this afternoon, together with the presentations and also the recording of the webinar. So you'll be able to see the presentations, the Q&A, and also our wonderful guests, our wonderful speakers. So our number of participants is climbing. And we would like to officially welcome everybody to the webinar. Welcome. Thank you very much for logging in on this fairly rainy morning in London. But my colleagues and friends sitting in Lisbon have a much nicer time of it. They're sitting in beautiful sunny Lisbon as we speak, with big smiles on their faces. So welcome to our participants, welcome to our speakers. And today's webinar is Investing in Portugal through Private Equity Funds, How It Works Together with the Golden Visa. Today is obviously Thursday, the 4th of November, here in central London time. Now, today my speakers and guests are Nelson Ventura Lourenço, who's the Senior Associate of Eversheds Sutherland FCB, and Vasco Pereira Coutinho, who's the chairman of the board of directors of Lince Capital. Both these companies are headquartered in Lisbon, although Eversheds is obviously part of a global network, and Lince has extensive interests in the UK as well. Both companies are corporate members of the Portuguese Chamber of Commerce here in the UK. Now, many of you will know me already. I've been involved in the Moving to Portugal programme for some time. My name is Christina Hippisley. I'm the General Manager of the Portuguese Chamber of Commerce in the UK. And throughout the year, we run our Moving to Portugal events, live and virtual. This is obviously a virtual event, but we do several live events. We run them in the UK to help you all find out more about how to move to Portugal. Now, it was great to see so many of you at our recent live event in central London on the 21st of October. It was the first time in 2 years, because of the coronavirus epidemic, that we were able to do one of our live events. We had a great time. Loads of people came in. There's a huge pent-up demand, no question about it. So our next live event is going to be in central London in March 2022. Make sure you register to come along if you'd like to. You can meet our panelists, you can meet lots of other people. movingtoportugal.org.uk, register there, and we'll give you the details of the next event. Plus, all our webinars and the presentations from the last live event are all stored there on the website. 6,000 people and counting have already come to the Moving to Portugal events in the UK. We have been doing them since 2018. And it's growing all the time, the database. So we've had a lot of experience already on the sort of questions you need answering. So hopefully we'll answer some more of those today. Now, just before I introduce our speakers in detail, a quick bit of housekeeping. The webinar shouldn't be any longer than 40 minutes. We are firstly going to have a short presentation from Nelson at Eversheds on the legal aspects of the Golden Visa regime. And then we're going to have a quick presentation from Vasco at Lince Capital about the private equity funds in Portugal and how they work. Then we're going to take questions from the audience. Please put any questions in the chat box here at the bottom of the screen. And we'll come to them after the two presentations. So, to our first speaker. So now, Nelson, you're going to tell us briefly in the following slides about how the legal aspects of the Golden Visa regime work in Portugal. We will be covering some of these points. What is the Golden Visa, ARI? What is the deadline? Because there are some legal changes coming up. And you're going to talk a little bit about the pre-application and application stages of the Golden Visa. So Nelson, over to you. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and explain the golden visa process to us. Nelson, you've got to unmute yourself. Hey. Hello, Nelson. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, Christina. Thank you. You're very kind. I also thank the Chamber of Commerce for having me here. And so I'm a senior associate at Eversheds. I have been working with the Golden Visa for several years now, and I hope to be of help for you and make this presentation, which will be short. And my main goal is essentially to be able to show you that it is possible to make this investment in this application within this short period of time until the end of December 2000 of this year, because that's when the law changes. So that is my main goal, and I hope I'll succeed.
Perfect.
Okay. So I would start by sharing my presentation here. And I would say that now I would start for the Golden Visa. What is it and how to get it? This means that the Golden Visa, it's not a visa that the type of ones that we obtain in a consulate or an embassy. It's in fact a residence permit. And we apply for it at the immigration office here in Portugal. So this means that you will have to come here at least at the second stage to make the application for this permit, and it's granted through a card, the size of an ATM card, where you have your photo, your name, your address, date of issuance, expiry date. So this, just to be clear, to know what we are talking about. Then benefits of a Golden Visa. Maybe many of you already know what benefits we have, but I'll go through them, at least through the main ones. And we have here a person to whom a Golden Visa is granted has the right to travel to Portugal without a visa, without applying for a visa at the embassy. Just like a Portuguese citizen, travel to any member state of the Schengen area, reside and work in Portugal, and this means that you can either work for someone else with an employment contract, or you can be self-employed. Mm-hmm. And after 5 years, you have the opportunity to, or the possibility to apply for a permanent residence or apply for citizenship. I will go through these two last topics at the end very quickly, but these are the main aspects. I would also dare to say that a person will have access to the Portuguese healthcare system and to our education system. Okay? These are also two advantages of the Golden Visa. But if you have rights, you will also have obligations, and the obligation is to make the investment. And here I would like to address one topic that is often posed to me, which has to do with what guarantees do I have that the permit is going to be granted, because I'm going to make an investment, a huge investment, for the sole or the principal purpose of getting the visa, and this is kind of risky. And the answer for this is that no, it's not risky, because the criteria to be granted the Golden Visa, it's objective, it's simple to meet, and if those requirements are satisfied, the administration has to grant the Golden Visa, and if they don't grant it, we can appeal to a court, and the court can order the administration to grant it. So it's a very secure investment, and if the requirements are met, I would say that there is no possibility to fail. Okay.
Okay.
So, and then if the golden visa is granted, people will have to stay in Portugal every 2 years and renew the residence permit every 2 years. In this regard, I would like to clarify also something, because that has to do with the COVID-19 pandemic, and then people talk with each other and then they get contradictory information, and this is why I'm going to make this clarification. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, the permit was granted for 1 year and renewed, and with the possibility of being renewed for periods of 2 years. Now, currently, it's granted for 2 years and renewed for also 2-year periods.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, but the other residence permits, which are not golden visa, have a slight difference. They are renewed for 3 years. They are granted for periods of 2 years and renewed for periods of 3 years. So I would like to clarify this, because sometimes people, well, but I heard this, my friend did that, and so
Okay.
I think this is clarified now. Then specifically here we are talking about investment in mutual funds. This is something that my panel colleague Vasco Pereira Coutinho will talk about, so I will not go into it. I will not dive into it much deep, but I would say that currently the minimum amount of investment is 350,000 euros, and as of January 2022, it will increase, the minimum amount, it will increase to 500,000. And the other thing I would like to point out is that it's not just any type of funds. Those funds have to meet these requirements here that we see on the screen. So the investment funds must invest in companies incorporated in Portugal. They have to know 60% of the investment has to be made in Portuguese companies and at least a 5-year maturity. But I'm sure that Vasco will talk about this.
Sure he will.
Okay. So the step plan, and now we are entering in the main objective that I have here, which is to show you how simple it is and how it is possible to do it in such a short period of time. The step one is what you have here: obtaining a Portuguese taxpayer number, opening a bank account, then make the transfer of funds to the Portuguese bank account, then proceed with the investment, assembling the documentation required for the application, and then proceed with the application. I would say that as time is running out, I would say that if at the end of this webinar someone wishes to make the investment, I would advise to start assembling the documentation immediately. So I would change this assembling documentation to the first place, to the first place of this list. Okay. Now, I'm going through each of those steps. So getting a taxpayer number, it's very simple. Before the COVID pandemic, we would do it in 1 hour. Okay, right now we can do it through the web. It takes like 2 or 3 days. We need these documents here and a tax representative. So this tax representative is someone that will be the link between the tax administration, the tax office, and the investor. It has to be someone residing in Portugal, legally residing in Portugal. It can be anyone. It can be a friend of yours. We usually recommend an accountant, someone we work with. Of course, that person is paid to do that job. It charges like 400, 500 euros. Some charge 700 euros per year. But then you have the certainty that all correspondence coming from the tax office is received.
Okay.
So this is a cost. A tax representative may be a cost, because if you have someone that is willing to do this for you, then you will not have to pay it. So passport, utility bill, and power of attorney, and you have a taxpayer number very easily. Opening a bank account is also easy, but it takes a little bit more time. These are the documents that you usually need. So a Portuguese taxpayer number, your TIN, tax identification number, it's required, or an equivalent document, a passport, payslip, personal data, and I would say compliance. Compliance, I mentioned compliance because because due to the new legislation on terrorism and money laundering and terrorism financing, the banks are now have to comply with certain regulations, and this may take a little bit more time to open the bank account. So this is another reason why we should move fast, because this sometimes may take a week or so. For people that reside, for instance, in Russia or other countries, it takes even more time.
Okay.
So this is the second step, and hopefully everything goes right. You make the transfer of funds and the investment. It's very important to transfer the funds to the Portuguese bank account, and then the investment has to be made from a Portuguese bank account. Okay.
Okay.
In this regard, I would also mention to be careful when choosing the bank, because not just any bank suits. So there are banks that don't provide custody security services for this type of investments. For instance, in Portugal, a banker does not do that job or that service, then does not render that service, so it's useless. So we need to be careful when choosing the bank, because some banks, at least that one, doesn't provide this service. Then, once the investment is made, or while the investment is being made, you should start collecting these documents. This is also very simple. A power of attorney that of course we lawyers provided, a police clearance certificate. From my experience, I believe it's quite simple to get it from the UK. This document needs to be apostilled and then translated, okay, or legalized at the Portuguese consulate. So yeah, we have two options, but we need to have a document with this formality, either apostilled or legalized at the Portuguese consulate. Then an affidavit, so on the 5-year investment. So you need to sign a document in which you declare that you will keep this investment for a minimum period of 5 years. And health insurance, here the detail in respect to this document is that the health insurance should mention that it has cover over Portugal, that it covers events occurring in Portugal. These application forms, we can get them, they are very easy to fill. Again, the TIN is also a document that is required. And here, a bank account balance. This is something I advise clients to have, because this has to do with proving the means of subsistence. Any regular person that wishes to reside in Portugal, not only for the golden visa purposes or for any other reason, has to prove means of subsistence, and this is the way to do it. I don't see in the law any exception to this, but I know that golden visa permits have been granted without this document. Still, I would document which is a balance showing that you have at least a bank account document showing that you have at least a balance of 8,000 euros.
Okay.
I would advise at least to get it, so that for instance, I was once notified to present it, so that's why I insist on having this document.
Okay.
Then Then from the investment side, these are documents that are provided by the Lince companies like Lince Capital and the bank. So the bank, we have an ownership certificate, and I have to say that they act quite fast. They have templates of these declarations. These are simple papers signed by the companies or the bank. They are easy to get, and as soon as the investment is made, they are able to provide these documents. So we need these three documents: ownership certificate, statement from investment funding company, and the bank statement confirming that the funds were transferred from abroad. So again, here is the reason why we need the funds to be transferred from abroad to a Portuguese bank, and then from the bank to the investment fund company. Okay, so buying the funds directly from abroad, it's not eligible for golden visa purposes. Okay.
Okay.
So then this is, once we get all the documents, we start the application. The application has two main stages. The first stage is an online submission of all the documents that we have collected in a PDF format, and we pay, and this has an initial cost of 533 euros.
Right.
Then the immigration authority receives this application, they make a pre-analysis, and if they believe that all requirements are met, then they invite us to make an appointment. This appointment, we do it online. We usually get in touch with the client and see when they are available to come to Portugal. And this is also very important to note that they really have to come to Portugal. Okay, there are no ifs and no buts. So at the second stage, client has to travel to Portugal, go to CEF, to the immigration office, because among other actions, they will collect their biometric data. Okay. Okay. So they will have to come to Portugal.
Right.
After this stage, the immigration office will analyze the documentation, the originals. We have to submit the originals, and then if they approve it, they will notify us to pay the official cost, which is this amount, 5,325 euros. Okay.
Right.
Every year this has little corrections. Currently, this is the amount, the official cost of the golden visa permit. And then after this moment, if we make the payment, they issue the residence permit. Okay, we collect it and send it to client, and this is how it's done. This is how it ends, and I believe it is possible to do it in this period of time until the law changes on January 1st. But of course, we have to act fast.
Okay, right.
So finally, there is one more topic: family reunification. So if you are granted with the golden visa, you can get it for your family as well, spouse and children, including of age, provided that they are married. Some say that this has an age limitation of 25 years. I haven't seen it anywhere. Okay. And I have seen family reunification for children over 25 years that prove that they are still studying, not in a golden visa environment, but in other residence permits. But I have seen it, and so I really don't think that there is an age limit in this regard, as long as they prove that they are studying. Okay, and economically dependent, because if the children are married, that is not, they are not eligible for family reunification. Parents economically dependent are also eligible for golden visa. The application, all applications can be submitted together. Okay, so when you make the investment, then you can also make the application for your family. And of course, here we have additional documents, which are those two I mentioned there, marriage and birth certificates. These documents also have to be apostilled and translated. And these have the same official costs. So each member of the family will have to pay that official cost of 5,000 euros. Okay. So I think I went through these topics here. The permit is granted for 2 years, renew with the possibility of being renewed for another two-year period, and subsequently. Okay. And the documents required in the renewal are basically the same. So we basically have to repeat the procedure each time we have to renew the document. We have to prove that we keep the investment. So we'll have to ask, for instance, companies like Lince Capital to provide us with the company stating, with the document stating that the investment was kept. And again, we'll also need those 2 police clearance certificates.
Okay.
So if the applicant will have to spend 14 days in Portugal, these 14 days are consecutive or non-consecutive, but the renewal has an official cost of 2,663 euros. Okay. And of course, submitted within 19 and 30 days prior to the expiry date that you have on the card. So I think this is my last slide. And after the 5 years, you may apply, you can continue to renew the temporary residence permit, applying for one. You can apply for citizenship or apply for permanent residence. I must say that applying for permanent residence, it's not very, it costs like around 8,000 euros, an official cost. Okay. And so it's not very attractive. Citizenship might be more attractive. Either citizenship and permanent residence, they require a Portuguese language test.
Okay.
And so that's it. I hope I was clear, and I'll be happy to take any questions you wish. Okay. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Carolina, perhaps you could share our slide. And thank you so much for that summary, Nelson. And it's clear that any detail of the Golden Visa application can be answered by you. Just to confirm, you are more than happy to answer any questions directly from our audience straight after this session is over.
Yeah,
here are Nelson's, yes, here are Nelson's full contact details for our audience. And feel free to contact him directly to set up a Zoom call or swap emails. If you're going to Lisbon, go see him personally. And we will give you his details again shortly. After our next presentation from Lince Capital. So thank you very much indeed for that, Nelson. We've had some very good questions from the audience about some of the detail of the Golden Visa, but we'll come to that in a moment, because I know several of our audience are very keen also to hear from our second presenter, who is Vasco Pereira Coutinho, the chairman of the board of directors of Lince Capital. Now, Vasco has joined us today, and I know many of you are going to listen to his presentation with some interest. A couple of the points he will be covering in the presentation are, why is the fund option for Golden Visas becoming so popular so quickly? I mean, it's extraordinary, the growth and interest in this. And also why so many people are picking the Golden Visa application using investment funds over the simple Golden Visa option of buying a property. So what I would like to do now is move over to meet our friend and colleague Vasco Pereira Coutinho from Lince Capital. Vasco, perhaps you'd say hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us from Lisbon, and please feel free to start sharing your presentation.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for the chamber for the invitation. It's very, very kind, and it's very good to be here. Let me present the presentation that I prepared for you guys. I believe you all can see it. So let me talk a little bit about Lince, and then I'll answer the two questions that you put together in your presentation when you introduced me. Lince Capital is a company that manages funds, okay, private equity funds specifically, and our funds invest in real estate mainly. The company itself, it's integrated in the family group, and the family group, all of us together, we manage over 750 million euros of assets in terms of funds, and the team is over 15 people of professionals. We have over 10 funds here in Lince that we manage, and specifically today I'm going to talk about two funds, okay? But before that, let's try and answer the two questions that you presented. Why is it going so big and growing so fast, and the big advantages of investing in the fund besides buying property directly? I think the second question is clearly presented here, because the process of investing in the fund is very, very simple. As Nelson mentioned, once you have the money in your personal bank account in Portugal, then you transfer the money into the fund's accounts, and in return you get the shares that you just bought from the fund. And those shares means that you invest 350,000 euros, and from that point on you don't have any other expenses. So there's no tax involved, there are no operation costs, no corporate tax, there's no personal tax, there's nothing until the end of the life of the funds, when the fund stops, and then we distribute everything. Even so, I can advance now that the funds, these kinds of funds, has zero tax on the activity itself, and then it only has tax on distribution, but it only has 10% tax when the distribution is done for the Portuguese national, meaning that any foreign investor can invest in the fund and has zero tax, okay, when the distribution is done. And compared with the property acquisition, you have all the stamp duty, the IMT, that's the transaction tax, the ownership, and of course all if you rent out the apartments or the house that you just bought, you have to pay tax on the rental that you bringing in. So with all these advantages, and because of the lower investment, the faster process, because at the end of the day you just need the paper from us and the paper from the bank. With those two papers you submit for the golden visa to the authorities. And of course, having higher returns from the traditional investment in property and a diversification of the fund itself means that lower risk. So all this combined, I think you have a much better product. So that's why the product itself and the funds themselves are becoming very, very, very popular. I can proudly say that we were the first company that promoted these kinds of funds, and Christina knows that. I've been talking with her since forever because of this. But in fact, and I proudly say that we have over 350 investors that invested with us for the golden visa purpose. I'm surely the biggest, or we are surely the biggest company that manages funds for golden visa in Portugal. Going specific to two funds. The first one is Navigator 2. Navigator 2, and I'm trying to be brief on this. All this documentation will be sent to you. Of course, we'll be answering all the questions that you feel like it in the end, and of course in the future. But let me talk a little bit about Navigator 2. Navigator 2 is a fund that invests in the real estate sector. meaning that the fund invests in companies, and each company has either a business in real estate or owns a real estate assets, or the idea is the fund operates mainly in real estate or mostly in real estate. And one of the things that we feel important to have is a model of governance that brings in more professional management, but also more guarantees and more security for the investors. And this is the governance that we are promoting in the fund. We are the fund manager, so we operate everything in terms of investments, deed investments, and operations themselves on a daily basis. But we count with two companies that help us as advisors. One of them is Omnium. Omnium is a boutique M&A company, a small one, but very strong here in Portugal in terms of market, very experienced in the markets. And then we have also Go Capital, that is a financial advisor for lots of clients that want in a way their money to be managed. So we have, bringing in these two companies, we have a lot of extra experience on the decision making, because the investment that we do, we prepare everything to do the investment, and then we bring in Omnium and Go in this case to have their opinion on the investment that we've got to be done. So, looking on the specific funds, what we're going to do with it, and we're already doing it, is we are actively looking for opportunity operations, because coming out of the crisis of, in this case, COVID crisis, brings in and inevitably brings in opportunities, okay? And we need to look at them. And the objective is to buy and build properties and buy and hold properties. And we aim to have, when we buy and build, meaning that we buy a property, we develop it, and then build it, and then later on we'll sell it. And then it's a typically incorporation of promoting a real estate project. And then we have a buy and hold strategy that allows us to have a more security, more stable income of the funds, meaning that some of the properties and operations that we're looking at, we are going to buy them, and then we're going to bring in a tenant and hold them with a fixed income and the fixed rents. We have a specific, on this fund, we have a specific landmark project, we like to call it, where the fund will have a stake. This is a very interesting project in the very promising area of Lisbon. This project is nonetheless, in my opinion, one of the biggest projects in that area, and it's transforming an industrial area, industrial warehouses into residential. And the concept is about to do lofts and lofts residential, and also lofts to be commercial properties and offices. And the idea here is, transform everything, make it a modern proper real estate project for people, so that we can get to the market at a lower price, so people can buy it and then develop. The idea on this project is to invest and have co-investors with us, because this is too big for the fund to take it as a whole. The idea of the fund is, again, to diversify. We have other targets. These are some examples, either from typical residential buildings that we like to refurbish and then sell properties, from a clinic that we're looking at that we're going to buy and have a fixed return, and other residential projects that we're looking at. And the idea, again, as I mentioned, is to buy them, refurbishment, and then sell the apartments, because, as you may know, Lisbon is on high demand for properties from foreign investors. This is some of the investments that we already done. Some of them we already sold. Some of them we have already in portfolio. Again, the idea is to keep on these specific ones, is to keep the properties and get the fixed income. And then let me just see if the slides go. Yeah, sorry. And this is some 3 exits that we did recently. Again, all of them based on higher returns, so that we can guarantee that we have the biggest and the best return for the fund investors. And then let's talk a little bit about the technical sheet of the funds. That again, this information will be sent to you. The fund size we'll target the fund size of 40 million euros. We'll estimate to end this year with about 15 million euros, and then the next year we'll fill up the rest of the funds. The minimum subscription or the minimum investment is 100,000 euros, because we have investors that don't necessarily need the golden visa. And the maturity of the fund is 7 years plus 2. Why plus 2? And this is important. The 7 years is because, again, this is a typical, between 7 and 10 years is a typical time limit of a fund like this. We have 7 years because we know that those who invested in the for golden visa, they need 5 years. And then in some cases, with some delays on the renewal, we give it an extra 2 years so that we can guarantee that everyone at the end has the golden visa and has no problems with it. The 2 extra years, again, is with the approval from the General Assembly of the fund, and is only for the purpose of, at the end of the life of the fund, if the market is not there for good exits, then we can propose to have 2 extra years, again, to have the best exit as possible so that we can get the investors the biggest returns. But this, again, this 2 extra years needs to have the approval from the investors. In terms of cost of the funds, this will be charged to the funds, and this is a 1.25 management commission. And then we have a performance fee that is 30% applied over the 3% preferred return that we're going to offer to the investors, meaning that for the first 3% for the investors, and then from the 3% up, we divide the profits between from 70 to 30. 70 for the investors and 30 for the management company as a performance. As I mentioned in the beginning, there's no the capital gains, it's just 10% for national residents, okay? Going to the second fund, I'm going fast because to try and to clarify anything, but again, if you have any questions at the end, please feel free to reach out. Lince Innovation Fund. Lince Innovation Fund is a fund, again, also a private equity fund, but the objective is to invest outside of real estate. And going into this subject specifically, Portugal is a country that when inside the EU, we have we have objectives as a country. And one of the main objectives that the EU has for the whole European Union, but also for the countries, is to reach a certain amount of investment in innovation, in research and innovation, and research and development. And with that, there's a huge demand from the economy, from the authorities here, so that we can have the conditions for the funds to invest in good companies that are looking for investments to develop their R&D areas or sectors. So we saw an opportunity here because we see that Portugal has a lot of companies that are growing and bringing in results, and we can see, for example, also the companies that are establishing themselves in Portugal exactly to take advantage of the lower workforce, or the low-cost workforce. The low costs of life and all that brings in the conditions for these companies to establish themselves here, and again from here develop their research and development area. So we saw, because all these companies came here to develop their own, why not us, move into the sector and try to find good opportunities to develop them. So, and this is a good example of what happened in Portugal in the latest years. These are some of the I would say startups and companies that are becoming very big and as a result of the investment in research and development. And some of them, you can see some unicorns here that are, for example, Farfetch. It's one very good example, and all of them born in Portugal. I should mention that the Portuguese government and the authorities here are very, very into supporting good investments and good companies that are willing to, from Portugal, grow into the world. So the good opportunities are here, and we are looking at them. The strategy of the funds, this has nothing to do with real estate. The objective here is to invest in companies that 70% of them, of the investment to be done in companies that as a growth capital, meaning that we invest in companies that are already providing results. And again, the objective is to invest in those companies that and to allow them to develop their R&D departments, so that they can bring in new ideas and new products. And the 30% of the fund will be to invest in startups. It's the startups taking advantage of everything that's happening in Portugal and all the good ideas and the good companies that are establishing and starting from here. Some of them, what we do to reduce the risk when investing in these companies, we use again another fund from the government that is it's called a 200M, as you can mention. That this fund invests half with us, meaning that we reduce the risk into half of the investment, and we take all the credit of the results because this fund only takes a small stake of the results. So this allows us to have the strategy where we have invest in companies that are growing already, but we invest in startups to take bigger returns, and with a reduced risk because of the participation of this program of the government. This is one famous investment that we did recently. I put this one here because of this one is having a lot of fuss here in Portugal, because this company specifically is very interesting in investing in cannabis and medicine cannabis, and the concept and the program here and the final product here is having a huge demand. Again, because of everything that Portugal offers in terms of costs and everything, this is the perfect country to develop something like this so that we can export for other countries in Europe. We have other investments that we currently closing. I listed 5 of them here. Some of them we have a medtech, we have pharmaceutical sector, industrial, and all of these companies are companies either startups or either companies that already exist, and again providing results, and we invest in them to allow them to grow and introduce new products into the market. This fund specifically, we target 25 million euros. We have a minimum subscription of 100,000 euros, same as the previous funds. The maturity is 8 years plus 2. The same criteria. The plus 2 again is for the purpose of exiting with the best result as possible. And then in terms of structuring and in terms of costs, we have the 2% structuring fee that it's one-off. It's just charged in the beginning, and then we have a management fee of 2%, and then we have a performance fee of 25%. Once the results of the money of the investors is returned fully to the investors, then we have a 25% carry on top of above that. Again, the tax on this fund is exactly the same as the other one. We have only 10% on distribution to national residencies. Okay, and thank you very much for your time. I hope I've been clear. Please feel free to reach out and have all the questions that we may need.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vasco. Well, I have to say that was a very comprehensive and very articulate summary of the 2 funds that Lince is currently working on, raising capital for. And just to establish again, ladies and gentlemen, our audience, Vasco will be more than happy to talk directly to any of you who care to contact him directly after the seminar. Either Vasco or his colleague Francisco, I know from experience, either of them will answer any questions you want to talk to them about. Now, what I'd like to do now is move on to take questions from our audience. So if we put up the contact sheet for both of you. So ladies and gentlemen, we've got several very good questions from the audience. If you've got any questions, please put them in the chat box. So Vasco, we have the first question for you. what are the best ways to validate a fund's investments? I mean, you are used to answering these questions, as you said just before, because investors, particularly from the UK, ask these all the time. But could you just run through the validation? How do the actual returns, annualized after fees, compare with more traditional market investments? Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Look, the more traditional, I would say, specifically with the golden visa in mind, I would say that people normally invest in real estate, typically buy properties directly. And those properties, if it's a residential project or residential property, you typically have around 3% growth in terms of return, 3-4%. And after tax and after everything, you end up with 1.5 to maybe 2%. On these funds, the objective here is to reach, our objective again is to reach around 10%. Okay, we have a preferred dividend or preferred distribution of 3%, for example, in Navigated 2. So this 3% will always be to the investor. We only have a performance above the 3%. So, but again, our aim on both funds is to go around the 10% return. And of course, we always aim higher. Okay, so this is a comparison of between the traditional investment for golden visa and these kinds of funds. Okay, and
tell us what sort of due diligence do typical investors do? I mean, do they you're regulated by the CMVM. Tell us a little bit more about the Portuguese regulatory process.
Absolutely. To be a management company, we need to be regulated. We are supervised and regulated, meaning that we need to comply with certain rules, and we are audited every 6 months to guarantee that we have everything in order. We do reports every 6 months, and of course, one of the things that I'd like to mention also is that I know what it is to invest abroad. And I know there's a huge distance between the investor and these kinds of funds. The funds are here in Portugal, and to accommodate that, we'll typically send a report every 3 months to the investors so that they can follow up easily on what's happening in the funds. Because I think it's very important for the investors to be, involved on almost on a daily basis on what's happening in the funds. But again, just to answer your questions, we are regulated, we are supervised, we are audited. So everything is very transparent, is on the eyes of everyone. So we have no secrets. So we're here, regulated.
Okay. And how, we've got a question from John, one of our viewers here. How is it possible to validate and verify the specific investments that are in a fund's portfolio, whether it's a real estate asset or a venture capital investment? How does an outside investor validate the actual investments going into the
Absolutely. What we do is each fund has a document that's called the management regulation. And the management regulation, lists all the rules that we need to comply with. And for example, if it's a fund that says that you invest in the real estate sector only, we can only invest in real estate sector. If by any chance we do other investments, then the supervisor will come after us and say, look, you cannot invest in it. So the objective here is only comply with everything that's written in the management regulation. Okay. And for example, in Navigated 2, we have a management regulation that says we invest in real estate opportunities in the real estate markets and everything that's happening in real estate. And the other fund, we invest in innovation and everything that's happening in companies, promoting R&D and so on. So, and we cannot mix, okay?
Okay. And Vasco, this is a question more to your very broad experience in the private equity market over the last 10, 15 years. Obviously, you run a significant family office there in Portugal. And one of our audience is asking, from your perspective, Vasco, the golden visa qualified funds that have been operating over the last few years, have any significantly failed or underperformed or resulted in losses? I mean, that happens too, does it?
Of course, it can always happen. I have to say this, but for now, until now, I haven't seen anything like that, to be honest. Okay, I've been doing this since the beginning, especially related to golden visa. And currently, look, there's no news of anything that happened badly.
Right.
We are the first private equity firm that's doing this kind of deals and this kind of projects and funds, specifically aiming for golden visa investors. Nowadays we have others and have other funds and so on, but we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it. Of course, we have to take into consideration always the team that is involved and the capacity that the team has to deal to bring in the results. That's when doing the decision, you need to look at the team.
Yeah, and last question before I move to Nelson. Several people have asked me this outside the webinar, but also here today as well. Is there a third-party independent information source that reports in Portugal on the different golden visa funds? This is because in the UK, there's lots and lots of sort of high-quality analysis firms that will rank and merit the different private equity options in the UK. Is there an equivalent for the Portuguese private equity options in Portugal? Is there a source of independent sort of evaluation that people can look at?
Is it for Nelson or for me?
Sorry, Vasco, that was a question for you. Forgive me. That was a question for you. If there's an independent information source in Portugal that summarizes the golden visa funds and what each one does or analyzes performance between them.
To be honest, I'm not aware of.
Not yet. Oh, market opportunity for someone.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not aware of.
Okay. What I'll do now, gentlemen and ladies, we've got a couple more questions to take. I'm conscious we've overrun in time, but I think the subject matter is important enough. Nelson, I've just got a couple of questions for you. Can we, if we're applying for a golden visa, maybe through, actually, this is probably not necessary for golden visa, but it's about residency. Can we rent property? So can a British person going to live in Portugal who doesn't want to buy a property, can they rent a property on a 5 or 10 year contract? Is that possible? Does the law allow it to have complete security for 5 or 10 years?
Absolutely.
So
yes,
it depends on the landlord, I suppose, as well. Depends if somebody wishes to, okay. One question I've got from the audience for you, Nelson, is do you think that the recent reorganization of CEF, which is the Portuguese Border and Immigration Control Ministry, do you think the changes in organization at CEF will impact the speed at which applications for residency and golden visas are approved, or how do you see that working out?
Well, I have to say that we have had several problems in this process because back in 2016-17 we had corruption taking place at CEF, and then now we have this issue, the pandemic issue. I have to say that CEF is not accepting any applications for renewals. So we try to make appointments to renew or even to set up a meeting for that second stage of the application that I mentioned a while ago, and the agenda is totally full, meaning they are not open for business. We were hoping that in October this would start to get better, but I haven't seen any changes. Okay. Mostly it has to do with the pandemic. Let's see what the new law on the budget, let's see what it says about it.
Okay. We've also got a question, Nelson, from one of our audience who was particularly interested when you commented on the fact that some banks are better than others for handling golden visa funds. Could you just clarify a little bit on that?
Well, the banks, when the investment is made, there is an entity, which is a bank, that has to provide security services, okay? Custody security services, okay? Mm-hmm. And for instance, there is a bank, which is the banker that does not provide those services. So we'll have to choose another one. We work with other banks that bank is not for this specific purpose.
So you would recommend certain banks that do the service?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Fantastic. Right.
Christina, can I add something on that?
Of course,
if you don't mind. I'd like to say that also that some of the banks, our funds are eligible for American investors, and we do a specific report that's called the PFIC that we send to the American investors that they need that report, and we do that in these both funds. And taking that into the banks now is that the banks, when we have an investment in these kinds of funds, you have to have a securities account. Some funds, as Nelson mentioned, some banks, as Nelson mentioned, have more difficulty or not to open that security account. But mainly the big banks, I say that they work. They work quite well.
Okay.
When you bring in American investors, then you have to be a little bit more careful, because some of the banks that don't have the FATCA compliant, they don't have the FATCA agreement signed, meaning that they cannot have the securities accounts opening for American investors. If by any chance anyone is an American here in this presentation and wants to know more about that, we have a lot of experience with Americans, and we have been helping investors to open bank accounts with banks that accept American investors.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, we're going to take one more question because I'm conscious of everyone's time, and this final question is for Vasco. Vasco, for your funds, this is a question from Nicholas. Vasco, for your funds, and especially the Innovation Fund, do you plan to market the Innovation Fund to institutional investors like pension funds and family offices, or just to individuals?
No, we are promoting the fund into individual and to companies. We're not going into institutional, because the size of the funds, in my opinion, is small for institutional.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, the idea is if it has a lot of traction, maybe next year we'll launch another fund with that purpose. Yes.
Okay. And can either of your funds, this is the second question of Nicholas, can either of the Navigator 2 or Innovation funds at Lince invest outside of Portugal?
Yes, they can, but we are, because of the Golden Visa, we are limited to invest 60% in Portugal. 60% of the investment needs to be done in Portugal. The other 40% we can invest outside.
Perfect. All right.
But to be honest, there's a lot of opportunities here in Portugal, and so we're looking into the country for now.
Okay, wonderful. Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I can see our audience is still very patiently with us, but I think an hour is long enough, and I would urge anybody with questions for you both to contact you directly. Both Nelson and Vasco's contact details are here on screen, and it only remains for me to say that both Nelson and Vasco would be delighted to talk to any of you. Everybody, all of our audience are sophisticated enough to do their own due diligence, which I'm sure they will be doing. And can I urge everyone to log on to movingtoportugal.org.uk, register for our next live event in March 2022. You'll see lots of us there, plus lots of fresh faces. We'll be doing more of these webinars in the coming weeks. Not over Christmas, thank God, but certainly we've got people like Nelson and Vasco and many more in Portugal very keen to talk to the British audience. So it just remains for me to thank our panelists and speakers, Nelson and Vasco. Thank you very much indeed for giving up your Thursday morning to help us and our audience learn more about the essential aspects of moving to Portugal. All this information will be freely available on our website and will be emailed to all our audience later today. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.